It was my first year of college. It was the longest I'd ever been away from home. Between new faces and endless lectures, I barely kept up. There were so many new people, and classes were so large that everyone seemed to blend in with the crowd, including myself. I had always done my best to blend in, to avoid attention. The whole semester had passed, and I really hadn't made any connections with anyone. Maybe I should have decided to live on campus for first year, like my Aunt Nikki had suggested. It would have been a good way to get to know some of the other students. Finally, it was winter break, and I was headed home for Christmas. Despite the cold, the thought warmed me. But as I waited to board the plane, I couldn't shake off the semester's loneliness. Even in this crowded airport, I felt invisible. Partway through the flight, I got up to stretch my legs and use the restroom. But when I walked into the restroom and locked the door, something supernatural happened. The light disappeared, and a transformation took place. I felt a tingling sensation and saw a bright light for a brief moment. When the light returned a few seconds later and I looked in the mirror, a woman looked back at me. She had soft, shoulder-length hair, a cute mouth, and elegant curves. Despite the panic I felt rising in my throat, her presence felt right. After remaining in the restroom unsure about what to do, I cautiously returned to my seat, carrying this secret. As I sat down, I felt very aware of the way my soft, pillowy chest protruded, and the way my hips had swayed when I walked, and I felt an intense and sudden surge of power in my body. When I became more settled in my seat, I observed that nobody noticed that I appeared different than before, and my secret shifted to a thrilling feeling in the core of my body. My softness, my curves, my newly slender shoulders, and bouncy feminine hair. I cherished how they made me feel. When the pilot announced we would soon be landing, I returned to the restroom, curious if this change was permanent. To my relief and yet quiet disappointment, the change transformed me back to my original identity the moment the door was locked. Landing back into my old self, I wondered if it was just altitude playing tricks with my mind. Or was it something more? Over the holidays, I felt like I was often distracted and lost in my own thoughts. Home was the same, but I wasn't. Underneath the holiday cheer, my mind was occupied with my experience in the sky, and I felt distracted, drawn to the idea of a different identity. The holidays eventually wound down and I headed back to college. I felt an anxious excitement as my return flight grew closer, curious if the magic would still be possible. On my flight back, I went to the restroom the moment the fasten seatbelt sign turned off. I was nervous, wanting to see if I would return to the feminine form I had experienced. With bated breath, I locked the door. It happened. I was amazed. I was a woman again, with soft skin, girlish curves, and a feminine beauty. I liked her. In that moment, I realized that I liked me. The rest of the flight passed in a blur of newfound happiness. I felt authentic, vibrant, alive. But as we were nearing our destination and my life back on campus, I had to choose. Would I return to college this term as my normal self, or would I go as my newly peaceful and dynamic self? The decision was the easiest I've ever made, and without knowing for sure if I'd ever be able to reverse it, I stepped out of the airport and not just into another semester, but into a new life. As Rachel. As I left the airport, I didn't look back. Amid the clouds, I had found who I was meant to be. Sometimes you just know when you're ready to fly.